The morning sun cast long shadows across the bustling streets of Greater Manchester as Detective Inspector Sarah Chun adjusted her uniform for the third time in 10 minutes. Today was not an ordinary day at the Greater Manchester Police Headquarters. Today, King Charles III would grace their building with his presence for an official visit that had been months in the planning. Sarah had been chosen as one of the lead coordinators for the royal visit, a responsibility that both thrilled and terrified her. She had spent weeks working with the royal protection officers, security teams, and local officials to ensure everything would run smoothly. The visit was part of the King's broader tour of police forces across the United Kingdom, aimed at recognizing the dedication and hard work of law enforcement officers during increasingly challenging times. The headquarters building itself had undergone a transformation over the past week. Every surface had been cleaned until it gleamed. Every piece of equipment had been inspected and polished, and every officer had been briefed on protocol. The normally busy corridors were now lined with carefully positioned displays showcasing the force's achievements, community outreach programs, and innovative policing methods. Chief Constable Michael Harrison stood in his office, reviewing the final details of the day's schedule with his senior staff. A veteran of 35 years in policing, Harrison had overseen royal visits before, but this one felt particularly significant. The Greater Manchester Police had been through considerable challenges in recent years, from terrorism threats to budget cuts, and this visit represented recognition of their resilience and professionalism. The King will arrive at precisely 10:30, Harrison announced to his team. He'll be accompanied by the Lord Lieutenant of Greater Manchester and a small entourage. We have 45 minutes for the tour, followed by a presentation ceremony, and then a brief meet and greet with selected officers and staff. Inspector David Walsh, head of the Community Policing Division, raised his hand. "Sir, what about the media presence? We've had requests from several news outlets." "Limited media access," Harrison replied. "Pool photographers and one television crew. We want to maintain the dignity of the occasion while ensuring the public can see the positive work being recognized here today." Meanwhile, 3 miles away, the royal convoy was making its final preparations. King Charles, dressed in a navy blue suit with a police-themed tie, was reviewing his briefing notes one last time. His private secretary had provided him with detailed information about the Greater Manchester Police Force, including statistics on crime reduction, community engagement initiatives, and notable cases solved by the dedicated officers. The King had always held deep respect for law enforcement officers. Throughout his decades of public service, he had witnessed firsthand the courage and dedication required to maintain public safety. This visit was personally important to him, as it provided an opportunity to express gratitude to those who served their communities with distinction. Back at headquarters, the excitement was building among the rank and file officers. Police Constable Emma Thompson, a 5-year veteran of the force, was among those selected to meet the King. She had been chosen for her outstanding work in community relations, particularly her innovative programs working with local schools to build positive relationships between young people and police. "I can't believe this is really happening," Emma confided to her colleague, PC James Rodriguez, as they waited in the assembly area. "I've been practicing what I'm going to say when I meet him, but my mind keeps going blank." James, a seasoned officer with 15 years of experience, smiled reassuringly. "Just be yourself, Emma. The King has a reputation for being genuinely interested in people and their work. He'll probably ask you about your community programs." The preparation for this visit had revealed the incredible diversity of work carried out by the Greater Manchester Police. From traffic enforcement to serious crime investigation, from community policing to counterterrorism operations, the force handled an enormous range of responsibilities. The displays prepared for the royal visit showcased success stories from each department, highlighting the human stories behind the statistics. Detective Sergeant Maria Santos had been working on a particularly complex fraud case involving elderly victims across the region. Sergeant Robert Hayes, leader of the Mounted Police Unit, was particularly proud of his team's inclusion in the visit. The mounted unit had been instrumental in crowd control during major events and had become beloved by the community for their visibility and approachability. The horses have been groomed to perfection, Hayes told his team. Phoenix and Thunder will be representing us today, and I know they'll make us proud. Just remember, the king is known to be an animal lover, so he may have questions about their training and care. As the morning progressed, the atmosphere in the building became increasingly electric. Officers who weren't directly involved in the visit found themselves speaking in hushed tones and walking with extra purpose. The administrative staff had worked overtime to ensure that every detail was perfect, from the flowers in the reception area to the positioning of chairs in the presentation room. The security preparations had been exhaustive. Royal protection officers had conducted multiple sweeps of the building, and every person who had come into contact with the king had undergone thorough background checks. Metal detectors had been temporarily installed, and additional CCTV cameras had been positioned throughout the route the royal party would take. Detective Chief Inspector Paul Evans, who oversaw the force's counterterrorism operations, had worked closely with royal protection to ensure that security was seamless but not oppressive. We want the king to feel welcomed and safe, but we also want our officers to be able to interact naturally with him, Evans explained to his team during their final briefing. The community representatives who had been invited to meet the king were equally nervous and excited. Local business owners, school principals, charity workers, and community leaders had all been selected for their positive relationships with the police force. They represented the various communities that made up Greater Manchester's diverse population. Mrs. Fatima Ahmed, who ran a community center in one of the city's most challenging neighborhoods, had worked closely with the police to reduce youth crime in her area. She had been invited to share her experiences with the king and discuss how police-community partnerships could make a real difference in people's lives. "I never imagined I would have the opportunity to meet the king," Mrs. Ahmed said as she prepared for the visit. "I want to tell him about the young people we've helped steer away from crime and toward education and employment. The police have been true partners in this work. The media preparation had been equally thorough. Journalists had been briefed on protocol and positioned at strategic points where they could capture the visit without interfering with the proceedings. The force's public relations team had prepared press packets highlighting key achievements and statistics that would provide context for the coverage. As 10 o'clock approached, the final preparations were completed. Officers took their assigned positions, displays were given final adjustments, and the reception committee assembled in the main foyer. The building, usually buzzing with the ordinary business of law enforcement, had taken on the formal atmosphere of a state occasion. Chief Constable Harrison made one final walkthrough of the route, checking that everything was in place. He paused at each display, imagining how it would appear to royal eyes, and satisfied himself that his force was ready to present itself with pride and professionalism. The moment was approaching when months of planning would be put to the test. The king's arrival would mark the beginning of a visit that would celebrate not just the Greater Manchester Police, but the vital role that law enforcement played in maintaining the fabric of society. For the officers, staff, and community representatives involved, this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to showcase their dedication and receive royal recognition for their service. Outside, the sound of approaching sirens could be heard in the distance. The royal convoy was making its way through the streets of Manchester, bringing with it the excitement and ceremony that accompanied any visit from a monarch. Inside the headquarters, hearts beat a little faster as the moment of arrival drew near. Detective Inspector Chun took a deep breath and checked her watch. In 30 minutes, she would be greeting the King of England in her workplace, surrounded by colleagues who had dedicated their lives to serving and protecting their community. The magnitude of the moment was not lost on her, nor on any of the others who had worked so hard to make this day a success. The visit represented more than just royal protocol. It was recognition of the challenging work performed every day by police officers across Greater Manchester. From responding to emergency calls to conducting complex investigations, from community engagement to counterterrorism operations, the men and women of the force worked tirelessly to keep their communities safe. As the sirens grew louder and the convoy drew closer, The atmosphere in the building reached fever pitch. This was no longer just another day at Greater Manchester Police Headquarters. This was a day that would be remembered by everyone present, a day when their service to the community would be acknowledged by the highest levels of society. The transformation of the building from a working police station to a venue fit for royalty had been remarkable. Every corner had been attended to, every detail considered. But beneath the polish and ceremony, the heart of the place remained unchanged. It was still the headquarters of a police force dedicated to protecting and serving the people of Greater Manchester. Chief Constable Harrison positioned himself at the main entrance, flanked by his senior officers. Behind them, the carefully arranged reception committee waited with barely contained excitement. The building had never looked better, the staff had never been more prepared, and the moment they had all been working toward was finally about to arrive. The sound of the convoy grew closer, and through the windows, the first glimpse of royal vehicles could be seen turning into the headquarters approach road. King Charles III was about to arrive for his official visit to Greater Manchester Police, and everyone present knew they were about to witness history in the making. The distinctive sound of motorcycle escorts grew louder as the royal convoy approached the main entrance of Greater Manchester Police Headquarters. Through the reinforced glass doors, Chief Constable Harrison could see the sleek black vehicles pulling into the carefully prepared arrival area. His heart rate increased slightly as decades of police training met the protocol requirements of a royal visit. King Charles III stepped out of the official car with the practiced ease of someone who had attended thousands of such events. At 75 years old, he moved with purpose and dignity, his experienced eye already taking in the details of his surroundings. The headquarters building, a modern structure of glass and steel, represented the contemporary face of British policing. The Lord Lieutenant of Greater Manchester, dressed in his ceremonial uniform, made the formal introductions. Your Majesty, may I present Chief Constable Michael Harrison of Greater Manchester Police. Harrison stepped forward with a precise bow. Your Majesty, it is an enormous honor to welcome you to our headquarters. On behalf of all the officers and staff of Greater Manchester Police, I thank you for this visit. The King's response was warm and genuine. Chief Constable Harrison, the honor is entirely mine. I have been looking forward to this visit and to meeting the dedicated men and women who serve this community with such distinction. As they walked through the main entrance, King Charles immediately noticed the care that had been taken in preparing for his arrival. The reception area gleamed under the overhead lights, and the displays of police work had been arranged with obvious pride and attention to detail. Detective Inspector Sarah Chun, positioned near the first display area, felt her nervousness transform into professional focus as the royal party approached. She had rehearsed her presentation multiple times, but seeing the king in person brought home the reality of the moment. Your Majesty, Chief Constable Harrison began, I would like you to meet Detective Inspector Sarah Chun, who has been instrumental in coordinating today's visit and leads our community engagement initiatives. Sarah stepped forward with a confident smile. Your Majesty, welcome to Greater Manchester Police. I hope you find today's visit informative and engaging. King Charles paused, giving her his full attention. Detective Inspector Chun, I understand you've been working very hard to organize today's proceedings. Tell me, what drew you to police work? The question, though expected, still surprised Sarah with its directness. I was inspired by the idea of making a real difference in people's lives, Your Majesty. Police work allows us to help people at their most vulnerable moments and to work toward building stronger, safer communities. That's admirable, the king replied. Community engagement must be particularly challenging in a diverse area like Greater Manchester. How do you build trust across different communities? Sarah's nervousness completely disappeared as she found herself discussing work she was passionate about. We've learned that consistent presence and genuine listening are essential, Your Majesty. Our officers spend time in communities not just when there are problems, but as part of everyday life. We attend community events, visit schools, and work with local leaders to understand each community's specific needs and concerns. The king nodded thoughtfully. That approach requires considerable dedication from your officers. How do you maintain that level of community involvement while dealing with serious crime? Chief Constable Harrison joined the conversation. Your Majesty, we found that strong community relationships actually enhance our ability to combat serious crime. When communities trust police, they're more likely to report suspicious activity and cooperate with investigations. As they moved to the first major display area, Detective Sergeant Maria Santos was waiting to present her work on financial crimes targeting elderly victims. The display included charts showing the scale of the problem and photographs of some of the criminals who had been brought to justice. Your Majesty, Maria began, this display shows our work protecting some of society's most vulnerable members from sophisticated fraud schemes. Over the past 2 years, we've disrupted several criminal networks that specifically targeted elderly residents. King Charles studied the display with obvious interest. This type of crime is particularly despicable because it preys on trust and vulnerability. What methods do these criminals typically use? Maria's expertise shone through as she explained the various tactics employed by fraudsters. They often pose as bank officials, government representatives, or even police officers, Your Majesty. They create elaborate scenarios to convince victims to transfer money or provide personal information. We've seen cases where elderly people have lost their life savings to these sophisticated operations. How do you prevent such crimes? The king asked. Education is crucial, Maria responded. We work with community groups, banks, and care facilities to raise awareness. We've also developed a rapid response system so that when someone reports a potential fraud, we can act quickly to prevent further losses and gather evidence. The king spent several minutes examining case studies and asking detailed questions about investigation techniques. His genuine interest in the work was evident to everyone present, and Maria found herself explaining complex financial investigations with increasing confidence. Moving through the building, the royal party encountered Inspector David Walsh and his community policing team. Walsh had prepared a presentation about youth engagement programs that had significantly reduced juvenile crime in several neighborhoods. Your Majesty, these programs focus on providing positive alternatives for young people who might otherwise be drawn to criminal activity, Walsh explained, gesturing to photographs of police officers coaching sports teams and running educational workshops. What age groups do you work with? King Charles inquired. We start as young as 5 years old in primary schools, Your Majesty, and continue through secondary education and into early adulthood. The key is building relationships before problems develop. The king examined photographs showing police officers reading to children, supervising football matches, and running computer coding workshops. This long-term approach must require significant resources. Chief Constable Harrison addressed this concern. It does require investment, Your Majesty, but we found it's much more cost-effective than dealing with the consequences of youth crime after it occurs. Prevention is always better than prosecution. I couldn't agree more, the king replied. Building positive relationships early must have benefits beyond crime prevention. Police Constable Emma Thompson, who had been selected to discuss her school liaison work, stepped forward. Absolutely, Your Majesty. The children we work with often become ambassadors for positive police-community relations within their families and neighborhoods. They help bridge gaps and build understanding. The king asked Emma about her specific experiences working with young people. What challenges do you face when starting to work with a new school? Emma's passion for her work was immediately apparent. Initially, there can be suspicion or fear, Your Majesty. Some children have negative perceptions of police based on family experiences or media portrayals. We overcome this by being consistent, patient, and genuinely interested in their lives and futures. Can you give me a specific example? The king asked. Emma smiled as she recalled a particular success story. There's a young man named Marcus who was heading toward trouble when I first met him 3 years ago. He was angry, distrustful of authority, and starting to associate with older boys involved in petty crime. Through our sports program and mentoring, he's now in college studying engineering and volunteers as a peer mentor for younger students. The king nodded approvingly. That transformation must be incredibly rewarding for you professionally. It's why I became a police officer, Your Majesty. Cases like Marcus remind us that we can change lives for the better. As the tour continued, they visited the Serious Crimes Unit, where Detective Chief Inspector Paul Evans explained the force's work on counterterrorism and organized crime. The displays here were necessarily more circumspect, focusing on general capabilities rather than specific operations. Your Majesty, Greater Manchester has unfortunately been targeted by terrorist attacks in recent years, Evans explained. Our role is to prevent such attacks through intelligence gathering, community engagement, and rapid response capabilities. The king's expression became more serious as he considered this aspect of modern policing. The attack at Manchester Arena was particularly shocking. How has that tragedy affected your approach to security? It reinforced the importance of cooperation between different agencies and the public, Your Majesty, Evans replied. We've strengthened our relationships with national security services and improved our ability to respond to both intelligence threats and active incidents. The resilience shown by Manchester's people in response to that attack was remarkable, the king observed. How important is public cooperation in your security work? It's absolutely essential, Your Majesty. The public are our eyes and ears in the community. When people feel comfortable reporting suspicious activity, it enhances our ability to prevent attacks. The technological capabilities of the modern police force were demonstrated in the Cybercrimes Unit, where specialists showed how they tracked online criminals and protected digital infrastructure. The king, known for his interest in technology's societal impacts, asked penetrating questions about digital privacy and online safety. This represents a completely new frontier in law enforcement, he observed while examining screens displaying encrypted communications analysis. How do you balance investigation needs with privacy rights? Detective Inspector Rachel Foster, who led the Cybercrimes Unit, addressed this crucial question. We operate under strict legal frameworks, Your Majesty. Every digital investigation requires proper authorization, and we have robust oversight procedures to ensure we respect citizens' privacy while protecting them from online criminals. The Armed Response Unit demonstration provided a dramatic highlight of the visit. Sergeant Michael Davidson explained the specialized training required for firearms officers and the strict protocols governing the use of armed force. Your Majesty, our armed officers undergo continuous training to ensure they can respond appropriately to serious threats while minimizing risk to the public, Davidson explained as the king examined specialized equipment. The level of training must be extraordinarily demanding, the king observed. It is Your Majesty. Our officers must demonstrate exceptional judgment under pressure. They're trained not just in marksmanship, but in de-escalation, tactical decision-making, and split-second threat assessment. The Mounted Police Unit presentation provided a lighter moment in the visit. King Charles, known for his love of horses, spent considerable time with Sergeant Robert Hayes and the two horses that have been specially prepared for the occasion. Phoenix here is 12 years old and has been with us for 8 years, Hayes explained as the king stroked the horse's neck. He's been involved in crowd control at major events and community policing activities. They're magnificent animals, the king said, clearly comfortable around the horses. How do they adapt to urban policing environments? Their training is extensive, Your Majesty. They must be comfortable with crowds, loud noises, and unpredictable situations. But they also provide an excellent platform for community engagement. Children especially love meeting the police horses. As if on cue, Phoenix nuzzled the king's shoulder, drawing laughter from the assembled group. I can see why they're popular with children, the king chuckled. The visit was running precisely on schedule as they moved toward the presentation ceremony room, where selected officers and community representatives waited to meet the king personally. The transformation of the headquarters from a working police station to a venue fit for royalty had been completed successfully, but more importantly, the visit had showcased the full range of modern policing capabilities. Chief Constable Harrison walked alongside the king, observing his genuine engagement with every aspect of the force's work. The royal visit was achieving its intended purpose, providing recognition for dedicated public service while highlighting the vital role of law enforcement in maintaining community safety and social cohesion. The morning's tour had revealed the complexity and diversity of contemporary policing, from community engagement to counterterrorism, from cybercrime to mounted patrols. Each unit had demonstrated professionalism and expertise, while the king's informed questions had shown his deep understanding of the challenges facing modern law enforcement. As they approached the ceremony room, the anticipation among the waiting officers and community representatives was palpable. The successful tour had set the stage for the formal recognition ceremony that would be the centerpiece of the royal visit. The ceremony room had been transformed into a space worthy of royal occasion. Rows of chairs faced a modest stage where the formal presentations would take place, while carefully positioned displays around the room highlighted outstanding achievements by Greater Manchester police officers and staff. The assembled guests represented a cross-section of the community that the force served with dedication and pride. King Charles entered the room to respectful applause, his presence immediately commanding attention without apparent effort. The morning's tour had clearly impressed him, and his genuine interest in the work of the force was evident to everyone present. Chief Constable Harrison stepped forward to begin the formal ceremony portion of the visit. "Your Majesty, distinguished guests, officers, and staff of Greater Manchester Police," Harrison began, his voice carrying clearly through the room. "Today we have the privilege of showcasing the outstanding work carried out daily by our dedicated men and women in service to our communities." The king took his position at the front of the room, looking out at an audience that included decorated police officers, civilian staff members who had shown exceptional dedication, and community representatives who had worked closely with the force to improve public safety and social cohesion. "Chief Constable Harrison, thank you for the comprehensive tour this morning," the king began, his voice warm and engaging. "I have been deeply impressed by the professionalism, innovation, and community focus demonstrated by your force. The range of work undertaken here, from traditional policing to cutting-edge cybercrime investigation, represents the evolution of law enforcement in the 21st century." The first formal recognition was for Police Constable James Rodriguez, who had been selected for his exceptional work in mental health crisis intervention. Rodriguez had developed innovative approaches to dealing with individuals experiencing mental health emergencies, significantly reducing the need for arrests and hospital admissions while connecting vulnerable people with appropriate support services. PC Rodriguez, Chief Constable Harrison announced, "Please step forward to meet His Majesty." Rodriguez approached with nervous excitement, his 15 years of experience not having prepared him for this particular moment. The king greeted him warmly and asked about his specialized training in mental health response. "Your Majesty, we recognize that traditional police responses weren't always appropriate for people in mental health crisis," Rodriguez explained. "I worked with healthcare professionals to develop new approaches that prioritize support over enforcement. That must require considerable additional training," the king observed. "How do you balance officer safety with compassionate response?" "Communication is key, Your Majesty. We learn to recognize signs of mental health crisis and use de-escalation techniques. We also work closely with mental health professionals who can provide backup when needed." King Charles nodded thoughtfully. This approach must have significant benefits for both the individuals involved and the community as a whole. "Absolutely, Your Majesty. We've seen dramatic reductions in repeat calls to the same addresses, and many people we've helped have gone on to receive proper treatment and support." The king spent several minutes discussing specific techniques and outcomes with Rodriguez, demonstrating his genuine interest in progressive policing methods. The conversation revealed the depth of thought and preparation that had gone into developing these new approaches to community policing. Next to be recognized was Detective Constable Lisa Patel, whose work on domestic violence cases had resulted in innovative victim support programs that had been adopted by police forces across the country. Patel's approach focused on empowering victims while building strong cases against perpetrators. DC Patel has revolutionized our approach to domestic violence investigations, Harrison explained as Patel approached the king. Her methods have resulted in higher conviction rates and better outcomes for victims. Your Majesty, Patel began when asked about her work. Domestic violence cases are among the most complex we handle. Victims often feel trapped and powerless, so our role is to provide both protection and empowerment. The king asked about the challenges of encouraging victims to come forward and participate in prosecutions. Fear and shame are the biggest barriers, Your Majesty. We've developed specialized interview techniques and support systems that help victims feel safe and respected throughout the legal process. What role do community partnerships play in this work? The king inquired. They're essential, Your Majesty. We work with women's shelters, counseling services, legal advocacy groups, and healthcare providers. No single agency can address all the needs of domestic violence victims. The king's questions revealed his understanding of the complex social issues surrounding domestic violence and his appreciation for the comprehensive approach being taken by the Greater Manchester Police. Sergeant William Turner was recognized for his leadership of the police response during a major flooding incident that had affected thousands of residents. Turner's coordination of evacuation efforts and emergency services had undoubtedly saved lives during the crisis. Sergeant Turner, tell His Majesty about the challenges you faced during the flooding emergency, Harrison prompted. Turner stepped forward confidently, his experience in emergency management evident in his bearing. Your Majesty, the flooding occurred during the night and developed rapidly. We had to coordinate evacuations of 3 residential areas while maintaining safety for both residents and emergency personnel. That must have required split-second decision-making under enormous pressure, the king observed. Yes, Your Majesty. The key was having established relationships with other emergency services and community leaders. When crisis strikes, you rely on the preparations you've made during calmer times. The king asked about the specific logistics of evacuating large numbers of people in dangerous conditions. Turner's responses demonstrated the extensive training and preparation that enabled police officers to respond effectively to major emergencies. We pre-position resources based on weather forecasts and flood risk assessments, Turner explained. When a situation deteriorated, we could act immediately rather than trying to mobilize resources while the emergency was unfolding. The level of coordination required must have been extraordinary, the king noted. It was, Your Majesty, but that's what we trained for. The safety of our communities depends on our ability to respond effectively to any type of emergency. The community representatives were then invited to share their experiences working with the Greater Manchester Police. Mrs. Fatima Ahmed, who had worked with police to reduce youth crime in her neighborhood, was the first to speak with the king. Your Majesty, the police have been true partners in our efforts to provide positive opportunities for young people, Mrs. Ahmed explained. They don't just respond to problems, they work with us to prevent them. The king asked about specific programs and their effectiveness. We've established after-school programs, sports leagues, and mentoring opportunities, Mrs. Ahmed replied. Police officers volunteer their time to coach teams and provide positive role models for children who might not otherwise have regular contact with law enforcement. This type of community partnership must require considerable commitment from officers beyond their regular duties, the king observed. It does, Your Majesty, but the officers understand that building relationships with young people prevents crime more effectively than any enforcement action. Local business owner David Thompson spoke about the police response to a series of commercial burglaries that had been affecting small businesses in his area. Your Majesty, the police didn't just investigate the crimes. They worked with us to improve security and develop crime prevention strategies. What specific measures were implemented? The king asked. They conducted security assessments of our premises, established regular patrol patterns, and created a communication network so businesses could quickly report suspicious activity, Thompson explained. The result was a significant reduction in business crime across the entire area. The king's engagement with each speaker was genuine and informed, reflecting his understanding of the vital role that police-community partnerships play in maintaining public safety and social cohesion. Inspector Angela Foster was recognized for her work with victims of human trafficking, a hidden crime that required specialized investigative techniques and victim support services. Foster's unit had rescued dozens of trafficking victims and disrupted several criminal networks. Inspector Foster, this must be among the most challenging work in law enforcement, the king said as she approached. It is, Your Majesty. Human trafficking victims are often deeply traumatized and initially distrustful of authority figures. Building trust takes time and requires specialized training. The king asked about the international cooperation required to combat trafficking networks. These criminal organizations operate across borders, Your Majesty, so our response must be equally coordinated. We work closely with international law enforcement agencies and use sophisticated intelligence analysis to map criminal networks. What happens to victims after they're rescued? The king inquired. We have partnerships with specialized support organizations that provide housing, counseling, legal assistance, and help with immigration issues, Foster explained. Our goal is not just to rescue victims, but to help them rebuild their lives. The technological innovations developed by the force were highlighted through the recognition of Detective Sergeant Mark Harrison, who had led the development of new forensic analysis techniques that had solved several cold cases. D.S. Harrison has pioneered the use of advanced DNA analysis and digital forensics to solve cases that had remained unsolved for years, the chief constable explained. Harrison stepped forward to explain his work to the king. Your Majesty, advances in forensic science allow us to extract useful evidence from materials that would have been useless in the past. We've been able to solve murders and serious assaults from decades ago. This must provide closure for families who had given up hope, the king observed. That's the most rewarding aspect of this work, Your Majesty. I recently contacted the family of a murder victim from 1995 to tell them we had identified the perpetrator through DNA evidence. Their relief and gratitude made years of painstaking work worthwhile. The king asked about the ethical considerations of reopening old cases and the resources required for cold case investigation. Harrison's responses demonstrated the careful balance between seeking justice for victims and managing limited investigative resources. Training and professional development were highlighted through the recognition of Chief Inspector Sarah Williams, who had developed innovative training programs that were being adopted by police forces throughout the UK. Chief Inspector Williams has revolutionized our approach to officer training, Harrison explained. Her programs focus on real-world scenario-based learning rather than traditional classroom instruction. Williams explained her training philosophy to the king. Your Majesty, police officers need to make complex decisions under pressure. Our training simulates realistic situations and teaches officers to think critically rather than simply follow procedures. How do you measure the effectiveness of this training approach? The king asked. We track multiple metrics, Your Majesty, officer confidence levels, decision-making quality in real situations, and public satisfaction with police interactions. The results show significant improvements across all measures. The king's questions revealed his understanding of the importance of professional development in maintaining high standards of public service. As the formal recognitions concluded, King Charles addressed the entire assembly. I have been profoundly impressed by the dedication, professionalism, and innovation I have witnessed today. The Greater Manchester Police represents the very best traditions of British law enforcement while adapting to meet the challenges of contemporary society. He paused, looking around the room at the officers, staff, and community representatives who had been part of the day's events. The partnerships you have built with your communities, your commitment to continuous improvement, and your focus on both preventing crime and supporting victims demonstrate policing at its finest. The work you do often goes unrecognized by the general public, the king continued. You deal with society's most difficult problems, often at personal risk, and you do so with dedication that honors the uniform you wear and the communities you serve. Chief Constable Harrison stepped forward for the concluding remarks of the formal ceremony. Your Majesty, your visit today has provided recognition and encouragement that will inspire our officers and staff for years to come. Your genuine interest in our work and your thoughtful questions have demonstrated the importance of the police service to our society. The applause that followed was heartfelt and sustained, reflecting the pride felt by everyone present in their service and the honor of royal recognition. The formal ceremony had successfully highlighted the breadth and quality of work undertaken by the Greater Manchester Police while providing a platform for the King to express his appreciation for dedicated public service. As the ceremony concluded and guests began to mingle, the success of the visit was evident in the animated conversations taking place throughout the room. Officers were sharing experiences and insights gained from their interactions with the King, while community representatives expressed their appreciation for the recognition given to police community partnerships. This informal interaction often revealed the most meaningful aspects of royal visits, allowing for genuine exchanges about the real challenges and rewards of police work. The room had been reconfigured to facilitate natural conversation flows, with small groups positioned around displays that would provide talking points for the King's interactions. Chief Constable Harrison accompanied the King as he moved from group to group, ensuring smooth introductions while allowing for authentic conversations to develop. The first group included officers from the Traffic Police Unit, who had been dealing with an increasing number of serious road traffic incidents. Police Constable Rachel Stevens, a specialist in traffic accident investigation, had been selected to discuss road safety initiatives with the King. Your Majesty, road traffic enforcement might seem routine, but it's actually become quite complex, Stevens explained as the King examined photographs of accident scenes and statistical charts showing traffic safety improvements. Modern vehicles have sophisticated safety systems, but driver behavior remains the biggest factor in serious accidents. King Charles, who had witnessed the evolution of automotive technology over his long life, asked thoughtful questions about current traffic safety challenges. What are the main causes of serious accidents today? Mobile phone use while driving has become a major problem, Your Majesty, Stevens replied. Despite public awareness campaigns and increased penalties, too many drivers still believe they can safely multitask while controlling a vehicle traveling at high speed. How do you detect and prove mobile phone use while driving? The King inquired. We use a combination of traditional observation and new technology, Your Majesty. Some forces are beginning to use cameras that can detect handheld phone use, and phone records can provide evidence in serious cases. The conversation revealed the ongoing challenge of changing driver behavior, even when technology could provide solutions to safety problems. The King's questions demonstrated his understanding that law enforcement often dealt with human nature rather than just technical violations. Moving to the next group, King Charles encountered officers from the Domestic Violence Unit who worked on some of the most challenging and emotionally demanding cases in law enforcement. Detective Constable Martin Walsh had been selected to discuss the psychological impact of this work on officers themselves. Your Majesty, domestic violence cases affect officers as well as victims, Walsh explained. We see people at their most vulnerable, and we often deal with situations where children are involved. It takes a psychological toll that we have to acknowledge and address. The King's expression became more serious as he considered this aspect of police work. What support systems do you have for officers dealing with traumatic situations? We have peer support programs, professional counseling services, and mandatory debriefing after particularly difficult cases, Walsh responded. We've learned that officer welfare directly affects our ability to serve victims effectively. How do you maintain professional objectivity while dealing with such emotional cases? The king asked. Training helps, Your Majesty, but honestly, the emotional impact is part of what motivates us to do this work well. We just have to learn healthy ways to process what we see and experience. This conversation highlighted an often overlooked aspect of police work: the personal cost to officers of dealing with society's most troubling problems. The king's genuine concern for officer welfare was evident in his follow-up questions about stress management and career longevity in demanding specializations. The youth engagement team provided a more uplifting conversation as the king met with officers who work directly with young people in schools and community centers. Police Constable David Chun had developed a particularly successful program that used technology and social media to connect with teenagers. Your Majesty, we found that using platforms young people already engage with is much more effective than traditional approaches, Chun explained while showing the king examples of educational content created for social media. This represents quite a departure from traditional police-community relations, the king observed. How do you balance informal engagement with maintaining respect for authority? We've learned that respect comes from authenticity, Your Majesty. Young people respond well when they see us as real people who care about their futures, not just authority figures who enforce rules. The king spent considerable time discussing the challenges of reaching young people who had developed negative attitudes toward law enforcement. Chen's responses revealed the patience and creativity required to build positive relationships with skeptical teenagers. What has surprised you most about working with young people? The king asked. How resilient and insightful they are, Your Majesty. Many of these young people face challenges I can barely imagine, but they still have hopes and dreams. Our job is to help them see positive paths to achieving their goals. The conversation with the dog handling unit provided some of the lighter moments of the meet-and greet session. Sergeant Patricia Moore introduced the king to Zeus, a German shepherd who specialized in drug detection, and Bella, a Labrador trained for explosive detection. Your Majesty, these dogs are genuine partners in our work. Moore explained as both animals sat perfectly still despite the unusual attention they were receiving. They have capabilities we could never replicate with technology alone. King Charles, clearly comfortable with animals, asked about the training process and the working relationship between handlers and dogs. How do you develop such precise communication with them? It takes months of intensive training, Your Majesty, but the key is understanding that each dog has its own personality and learning style. Zeus here is very focused and methodical, while Bella is more energetic and intuitive. The king asked about the dog's welfare and working conditions, revealing his well-known concern for animal welfare. Moore's responses about veterinary care, working hours, and retirement plan for the animals clearly pleased the king. What happens when they retire from active duty? He asked. Most live with their handlers as family pets, Your Majesty. Zeus will eventually retire to my home, where he can enjoy a well-deserved rest after years of dedicated service. The Cybercrimes Unit provided one of the most technically complex conversations of the visit. Detective Inspector Graham Foster attempted to explain the challenges of investigating crimes that existed only in digital spaces while maintaining the privacy rights of citizens. Your Majesty, cybercriminals often operate across international borders using sophisticated technology to hide their identities and activities, Foster explained while showing sanitized examples of digital evidence. This must require completely different investigative techniques than traditional crime, the king observed. Absolutely, Your Majesty. We need officers who understand complex technology, international law, and digital forensics. It's like learning an entirely new language of evidence and investigation. The king asked about the scale of cybercrime and its impact on ordinary citizens. How do you keep up with criminals who may have access to the same advanced technology as law enforcement? The king inquired. Partnership is essential, Your Majesty. We work closely with technology companies, academic institutions, and international law enforcement agencies. No single organization can stay ahead of cybercriminals alone. The community representatives provided some of the most emotionally resonant conversations of the visit. Mrs. Sarah Johnson, whose son had been helped by police intervention during a period of drug addiction, spoke with the king about the impact of compassionate law enforcement. "Your Majesty, when my son was arrested for drug possession, I thought his life was over," Mrs. Johnson explained. But the officers who dealt with him saw potential rather than just a problem. They connected him with treatment services rather than just processing him through the courts. The king listened intently to her story. That must have required considerable insight from the officers involved. "It did, Your Majesty. They took time to understand his situation and our family circumstances. They treated him as a person who needed help rather than just a criminal who needed punishment." "What was the outcome for your son?" the king asked. "He completed rehabilitation, finished his education, and now works as a substance abuse counselor helping other young people." The officer's compassion changed the entire trajectory of his life. This conversation highlighted the human impact of progressive policing policies and the importance of treating addiction as a health issue rather than purely a criminal matter. Local business leader Michael Thompson discussed with the king the economic impact of effective policing on small businesses and commercial districts. "Your Majesty, when crime affects businesses, it damages entire communities. The police here understand that protecting commerce protects jobs and community vitality." The king asked about specific crime prevention measures that had been effective for local businesses. Thompson's responses revealed comprehensive approaches that went beyond traditional patrol and enforcement. They helped us organize business watch groups, improve lighting and security systems, and develop rapid communication networks, Thompson explained. "The result has been a significant reduction in commercial crime and increased confidence among business owners." Imam Abdullah Hassan spoke with the king about police-community relations within Manchester's Muslim community, particularly important given the city's diverse population and history of terrorism threats. "Your Majesty, building trust between police and Muslim communities requires understanding, respect, and consistent engagement," Hassan explained. "The officers here have made genuine efforts to understand our community's concerns and perspectives." The king asked about specific initiatives that had been successful in building bridges between law enforcement and Muslim residents. Hassan's responses revealed careful attention to cultural sensitivity and religious accommodation. "They participate in our community events, they understand our religious practices, and they've worked hard to distinguish between security concerns and religious prejudice," Hassan said. "This has created an environment where community members feel comfortable reporting genuine security concerns." As the meet and greet session continued, King Charles moved from conversation to conversation with obvious engagement and interest. His questions were informed and thoughtful, revealing preparation and genuine curiosity about the work being done by the Greater Manchester Police. Detective Sergeant Jennifer Adams, who specialized in working with victims of sexual assault, had one of the most serious conversations with the king. "Your Majesty, these cases require extreme sensitivity and specialized training. Victims have often lost trust in institutions and authority figures. How do you rebuild that trust?" the king asked. "Patience, consistency, and absolute respect for their autonomy, Your Majesty. Victims need to feel in control of the process, and they need to know that their privacy and dignity will be protected." The conversation touched on recent changes in how sexual assault cases were investigated and prosecuted, with Adams explaining new approaches that prioritize victim welfare while still building strong criminal cases. Chief Inspector Robert Davies, who oversaw the force's emergency response capabilities, discussed with the king the coordination required during major incidents, such as terrorist attacks or natural disasters. "Your Majesty, modern emergency response requires seamless coordination between multiple agencies: police, fire, ambulance, military, and local government," Davies explained. "We train constantly for scenarios we hope will never occur." The king asked about lessons learned from recent major incidents and how they had influenced training and preparation. Davies's responses revealed the complexity of modern emergency management and the high levels of preparation required to protect public safety. As the informal conversations continued, the atmosphere in the room became increasingly relaxed and animated. Officers and community representatives were clearly energized by the opportunity to share their experiences with the king, and his genuine interest in their work was evident to everyone present. The visit was achieving something beyond formal protocol. It was creating genuine connections between the monarchy and the people who dedicated their lives to public service. The king's informed questions and thoughtful responses demonstrated his understanding of the challenges facing modern law enforcement and his appreciation for the dedication required to meet those challenges. Police Constable Ahmed Patel, who had immigrated to the UK before joining the police force, spoke with the king about his experiences as an officer from an ethnic minority background. "Your Majesty, the police force has become much more diverse during my career, and this has improved our ability to serve all communities effectively." The king asked about the challenges and opportunities of increasing diversity within law enforcement. Patel's responses revealed both progress and ongoing challenges in creating truly representative police forces. Diverse teams bring different perspectives and experiences that help us understand and serve our entire community, Patel explained. But we still need to work on recruitment and retention to ensure we reflect the populations we serve. As the meet and greet session drew to a close, King Charles spent time with Chief Constable Harrison and his senior team, discussing the broader challenges facing British policing in the 21st century. "The range and complexity of work I've seen today is remarkable," the king observed. "From cybercrime to community engagement, from counterterrorism to youth programs. Modern police officers need skills that would have been unimaginable a generation ago." Harrison nodded in agreement. "The core mission remains the same, Your Majesty, protecting the public and maintaining order. But the methods required to achieve that mission continue to evolve rapidly. How do you ensure officers can adapt to these changing requirements while maintaining the fundamental values of public service?" the king asked. "Continuous training, strong leadership, and never losing sight of why we do this work," Harrison replied. "Every officer here understands that they serve the community, and that sense of service motivates them to master whatever skills are required." The king's final conversations were with civilian staff members who provided essential support services that enabled police officers to focus on operational duties. Administrative Manager Janet Foster spoke about the behind-the-scenes work that kept the force functioning effectively. "Your Majesty, for every police officer you see, there are civilian staff members providing support services, from forensic analysis to communications, from human resources to finance," Foster explained. "We're all part of the same mission to keep communities safe." This conversation highlighted the team nature of modern policing and the essential contributions of non-sworn personnel to public safety efforts. As the visit reached its conclusion, King Charles addressed the assembled group one final time. "I came here today with great expectations, and those expectations have been exceeded in every way. You have shown me policing that is professional, compassionate, innovative, and deeply committed to serving your communities. The challenges you face are complex and ever-changing, but your responses demonstrate the very best qualities of public service. You should take pride in the work you do and the difference you make in people's lives." Chief Constable Harrison responded on behalf of the force. "Your Majesty, your visit today has provided recognition and encouragement that will inspire us for years to come. Your genuine interest in our work and your thoughtful engagement with our officers and staff demonstrate the value you place on public service." As King Charles prepared to depart, the mood in the room was one of satisfaction and pride. The visit had successfully showcased the breadth and quality of work undertaken by the Greater Manchester Police while providing meaningful recognition for dedicated public servants. The royal convoy formed up outside the headquarters building as officers and staff gathered to bid farewell to their distinguished visitor. The transformation of the building back to its normal working environment would begin immediately, but the impact of the visit would resonate far longer. For the officers and staff of the Greater Manchester Police, the day had provided validation of their dedication and professionalism. For King Charles, the visit had offered insight into the evolution of law enforcement and the continuing commitment of police officers to serving their communities with distinction. As the convoy departed, carrying the king to his next engagement, those who had participated in the visit began the process of returning to their normal duties. But the conversations, recognition, and royal attention they had experienced would remain as lasting reminders of the value and importance of their public service. The headquarters building gradually returned to its usual bustling activity, but the pride and satisfaction generated by the successful royal visit would continue to motivate and inspire the men and women of the Greater Manchester Police as they carried out their vital mission of protecting and serving their communities.